Okay, so good morning, students. Let me warmly welcome you to the third day of the third workshop that we are having. So today's session is about MIT App Inventor. And as usual, if you want to talk to us, please use the chat window, and then you can ask questions right throughout the session that we are having. So we also have some lineups, like tomorrow we will actually have this introduction to AI, which is an introductory session, and we'll talk about coding and how you can use AI later in January. So we will also have some other workshops on Java as well as Unity in January, and we will announce the dates by the end of December. So just before I start, let me very quickly show you a few things. So if I actually show you the Codefest website, so you can actually register for the various categories that you are in. So there's this registration available. So you can register either in one of these three categories. These are the registration forms. And if you go under competition details, you can actually find out more details about the competition. And if you have actually been competing at Codefest before, there is not a major change in the way we do the competitions this time. So it's similar. So you can actually find out more details about the competitions right here. I think for some reason my web page is not loading. And regarding workshops, so for example, if you want to know about the junior category, you can find out about the exact requirements, the important dates. So all those things are there. And regarding the workshops that we have had 2 workshops. If you miss those, there are recordings of those, including the links here. So actually, yesterday's one is also there, and you can access that if you go to YouTube page. I think it's this one. So that should actually have the videos, including yesterday's one on Scratch. There are previous ones as well, which was used last year. So there are actually quite a lot of ones. So the last 2 days, what we had is actually available here if you want to have a look at them, right? If you miss them. I think with that, let me actually start today's session. So if you have any questions, as I said, like you can ask me at any time. So I don't see any questions right now. So yeah. Let me actually minimize this. Okay. So so today's session is actually about MIT App Inventor. So if you have not met me before, I'm Dr. Nuwan Kodagoda. So I teach in the Faculty of Computing at SLIT. So this is actually for any kind of student, like it can be like from the primary category to the junior to the senior. So I think yesterday you had an introduction to Scratch. And also in your school syllabus, I think in grades, if you're doing ICT, you also learn about Scratch. So Scratch is a very simple kind of programming environment. And during this last 2 years, because of this COVID situation, I think everyone started using computers and mobile phones, tabs, and you use many applications. So I know like you like to play a lot of games on your phone, or maybe if you have a tab, you'd like to play computer games, mobile games, or whatever tools that you want to use in a mobile phone, you really like that. But what if you could actually make these kinds of games? Like, what if you could actually make games that run on a phone? Not only games, like, applications that run on a phone, on a tab, basically developing mobile applications that run on that Android ecosystem. So that's what you will learn here. And so you might be actually thinking that developing an Android application is very difficult, or maybe like creating a mobile phone application is very difficult, but that's really not the case. So this is actually for beginners. MIT App Inventor is made by the same university. MIT is one of the leading universities in the US, technology university. They are the people who behind Scratch, and they also made a version of Scratch that you can use for developing mobile applications, specifically that run on the Android phones. So you will see it's very easy if you know how to use Scratch. So actually, to play Scratch, you can very quickly pick it up in about 5 minutes. You can use the same skills to develop mobile applications, and you can actually deploy them and then run on a real Android phone without much trouble. So before, I mean, please ask questions if you have any as we go along. I will check that. So let me actually show you some examples of what kind of things that we can do first. Then I think you'll get an idea, and then we'll look into how to develop these kinds of applications, right? Now, to do this, we are going to use an online environment. So it's called MIT App Inventor. You can just Google this. You don't need anything. You don't even need to have a phone to develop applications. So MIT is, as I said, it's like the most sought out technology university in the world. So I mean, when you say that you're going to MIT, that's like a very prestigious thing. So it's in Boston in US, and they are the people behind Scratch as well as MIT App Inventor. And you don't need anything. You just need to have a computer with internet connection. That's all, right? So when you actually go into this, there are a lot of tools available. So it's really meant for kids, as you can see. So small children use this, but you can really develop real applications using this. So there are many tutorials and a lot of material are available. And let me actually show you a little bit about how to actually connect let's say get started. And then I think this is also something that I wanted to show you from the very beginning. So if you want to use App Inventor, there are 4 ways in which you can actually use it. The easiest way is if you can actually have an Android phone. So if you have an Android phone, you connect your phone to your Wi-Fi and your computer also to the Wi-Fi. And then you need to install an app. There is this app. We will not do this now, but you can try out these instructions. There is a little app that you need to install. So the app name is actually given here. It's, I think, called, so it's actually given. You can actually download this companion app. And then when you do the development here, you can actually see the application running on a real phone. Now, you don't really need to use a phone. Now, I actually will not use a phone. Instead, I will use an emulator. An emulator is a piece of software that works like the real phone, but you can see it in the computer. So I have my emulator running. This is my emulator. So it's like a real phone, but if you want to run the emulator, of course, you need to install it. So I'll show you where you need to install it. You can do this later, but if you have a real phone, you don't have to use the emulator, right? So let's get back to this. So if you're using the emulator also, like there is this, you need to kind of download it. It's available for all operating systems. Whatever computer type you use, it's available for that, right? So I will assume that this is something that you will do later on. You can even use a cable and connect, but this is the preferred way, the first option. But I'm using the third option where I will actually using an emulator. Now, this is the command that you use to start developing an app. So I have already done that. So let me actually go to my the environment. So when you actually start MIT App Inventor, you come to this environment like this. I will actually select something that I've already done. Maybe it is, let's say, I think this one could be, so I have already, created the application. So what I'll do is like, I'll initially show you a sample application. I'll run it and then show you what happens. Now imagine this is a application that I have developed, and I have 3 screens. This is screen 1. This is a button. This is an image. So when I click this next button, I want to go to screen 2. So this is screen 2. In screen 2, I have another image and another button. When I click this button, I want to go to the third screen. So I have 3 screens, right? 3 UIs I have. And then when I click the button here, I want to go back to the first screen. So that is my application, right? Now I have written code for this as well, but I'll show you the code later. I just want to run this and show you what this application looks like. Now I will run this. So when I have my emulator set up, I can actually run this here. So when I click here, this is the actual application running. Earlier, that was the place I developed the application. So when I click next, you can see it will take a little bit of time. Now if your emulator or phone is not responding, it could be that the connection has been lost, and then you can actually, you'll have to refresh the companion screen. So I think if you do that, it will actually work out. Or let me actually restart this. Yeah, so let it actually run, right? So it might actually take a few seconds to connect again. So it has lost the connection. So by the way, while it does that, I will actually go to this. So it's actually doing the connection. Let it do that. So I'll come back to this screen while it does that. So when you're developing an application, the view that you saw in my computer is what we call the design view. Now it is in this design view where we actually create the kind of UI that is there. And then I will actually show you how you can actually write coding as well. So, so this is a little bit of an intro about MIT App Inventor. So it's, as I said, like similar to Scratch. And you can develop Android applications. You know, like there are other applications as well. So most phones use Android, whether you use Samsung or most phones use the Android operating system. Of course, the Apple phones are different. They use iOS. So you can't develop iOS applications using MIT App Inventor. It's only for Android applications. And actually, even without a phone, you can actually develop this application, and then you can, you can send it to your friends who have these mobile phones, right? So this is the design view that we are in. So I think by now it should be fine. Let me go to my environment. It's actually still checking. Yeah, so now if you actually look at, now this is my emulator which is running. And if I click the next button, it should take me to the next screen. You can see like it goes to the screen 2. And when I click the button here, it goes to the third screen. And if I click on the front button, it goes back. So this is a very simple mobile application that I will show you how to develop, right? I think I have someone, if you have a question, please, you can ask using the chat window, right? So let me show you something else. Like, let me show you another simple application. This time, let's try to look at an application where where there's actually maybe a calculation, right? So let me load that app. So one very one nice thing about this environment is like when I actually open a new project, my emulator also automatically loads that, right? So you don't have to actually connect the emulator once it's synced. You just work on your application and automatically what is there on the screen appears on the emulator or the real phone. Now here, what I want to do is like, you can see like I want to get a length, width, and a depth. So think of a box. I want to find the length of the box, the width of the box, and the height of the box, and calculate the area. So by the way, this is called the designer view. It is in this designer view that you create this UI, right? And this is where you write the code. When you write the code, you go under blocks. And as you can see, this is like Scratch, right? So these are the different commands that you can use. You can use if command, for each. So this is like Scratch. You can use logical commands. There are math operators, right? And then each of the components that I have in my screen, I have actually some text boxes. There are 3 text boxes, 3 labels. There's a label over here, and there's 1 button. So if I go under the blocks, this is where I write the code. I can actually select any of these components. So for example, if I select my button, you can see the commands I can give. These are the different commands. So I will explain what they are. So for different ones, you have different commands. Like if I select text box 1, these are the different commands associated. And if you have done Scratch, you know it's very similar to Scratch. In fact, it's like almost like Scratch, right? So we will actually learn some of these commands as we go along. But let's run this application. So basic ideas like I want to type these values and then calculate the area. So I'll show you the code I have written. So this is the code. So I'm taking the text box 1 value, multiplying it with text box 2 value, multiplying that with text box 3 value, and then storing it in something called label 5. So let's run this program. So in my emulator, I can actually type here, let's say the length is 10, width is 5, and the depth is 2. So it should be like 50, 50 into 2 should be 100. So when I click the calculate button, you can see 100 coming here, right? So this is my application running. Of course, if you have a real phone connected, you can actually run this directly. I think I can see someone who has raised their hands. Can you directly ask me? Because I don't think you can unmute yourself in this environment. If you can use the chat window and ask, or if you have a problem, can someone type on the chat window, please? Okay, so once again, let me show you a few demos first, and then we'll actually look at coding. So I want to show you another one. So maybe you want to create, let's look at this drawing application, right? It's a very simple drawing application. Now in this drawing application, I'm using a canvas, and that's it. And the code I have written is very simple. That's just only one line of code. Let's actually run this code and see what really happens. So this is actually a painting program. And in this program, what I can do is actually I can draw. If I click the mouse or using the finger, I can draw things. Right? I can draw things. So this is very simple. I can't change the color. It's only drawing. Just using the mouse, I can draw this, right? So you can very easily develop an application like this. Imagine that you want to develop a painting application where you can change colors, you can fill things, insert images, right? So, so this particular app that I have written, it's only a few lines of code. It has a canvas. Canvas is the drawing area. And basically what it does is it draws a line. So this checks the mouse movement, and then it uses this draw line command to draw lines between the two points that are there. Right, now let's actually go and look at how you can use this design view. So we'll go to a new project. So let me create this a new project. This is how you create a new project. You go under project and then go under start new project. Let's call this first. So I'm creating a new application. So this is the view that you see. Now you should create, you are in the designer view. And what we do in the designer view is to actually create the UI. So maybe I want to create a UI where I have so this is the user interface commands that you have. So these are components that you can drag and drop. So let's say I want to have something like a button here, right? So I want to have a button here. So I think once again, someone is trying to raise their hands. I think it's, yeah. So if you have a question, can you maybe ask, I think it's someone from Gaul. You can use a chat window and then ask the question that you have. Okay. So till that happens, so I have actually put up a text box here. Let me put a label. So this is a label. And so you can actually drag and drop these components. So let me put a text box. Text box is something that you can type, right? And so this is a very simple app. So I have actually a text box, a label, and a button. And if I go to my emulator, you can see I can click here. Of course, nothing happens. I can type something. That's what you do in a text box. You can type something. But of course, nothing happens in this program. That's because we only have done the design. Now, the first thing that you might want to do is you might actually want to change these things. So you might want to change text for button 1 to something else. Maybe we want to say click. So the way that you do that is to use this properties window. So I'll check this component. You can see the components here as well. This is button 1. This one is label 1. This one is text box 1. Now for each one, you can change these properties. So let me show you how you can change the properties. Now designer means when you're creating the application. So when you're writing the computer program, when you're developing the application, you can go and change this. So let's say that I want to change the a different color. I want to have a different color, like blue color for the button or cyan color. You can come here and then change the background color. It is for button 1. So it's only button 1 will change, right? I can select the font. If I select this is italic font. This is bold, right? You can see it's bold. I can change the size. So I can make it fairly large. So I could make it 25 or something, right? So you can see now the text is very large. I can change the font type. So I could, normally you will not do this, but it's possible for you to do that, right? You can have an image. You can change the shape. This is the default size. I could make it oval. So now if you actually go here, this is what your button, this is how it will actually look like, right? So you may not see buttons like this. So let's have it as the default one. So let me click this and make this the default, or let's say rectangular. Now, this is where you can change the text. So let's say instead of text for button, I'll say click. So when I do that, you can see it changes like this. So this is the property there. I can, for example, change the color of the text. Let me put it as red text. So all these things you can change, right? And you can also change the label. This is the label that comes. So we'll say there are all these different properties which are kind of similar. So if I want to change this to like enter your name, I could say like enter your name, right? So then it comes like this. So maybe for the text box, I want to use a larger font size. So let me change the font size to 25, right? Okay, there's a question. Yeah, so this you can actually rearrange these things. So right now it's actually in the left side. I will show you how to, that's a very good question. Like how do you get it to the middle? So it's possible to do that, right? You can see here, like there is this text alignment. Of course, this text alignment is like the text part, but the arrangement of the components are left aligned. I will show you how you can change that. That is done through layouts. So through layouts, you can actually rearrange the way that you actually have these components, right? Yeah, so that's possible. Okay, so how do you start MIT App Inventor? So the way that you do that is actually you type this. So I can actually share this URL, but I think the best way is like you just type this, right? So if you actually type MIT App Inventor in Google, you can actually Google it and then find it out. So let me kind of like, so if you Google MIT App Inventor, you can actually start that. That would be the best way. The best way to use MIT App Inventor is actually to use the internet version. There is a way of downloading it as well, but it might be actually easy for you to use the internet version of it, right? There is a version where you can download, but this is preferable. So what you do is like, let me just kind of show it to you again. So if you go to Google and if you actually just type in MIT App Inventor, there's a download as well. I'm not really sure whether it's the latest one. So actually you can go under this. This is the specific one that we are using, or you can come here. It might be easy for you to come here because there are a lot of other materials like tutorials, various things are available here. If you go under get started, it will tell you how to set things up, how to set up the emulator. So that there are some instructions that you might want to do. So maybe like, because you need to have a phone connected as well. This is the preferred way. So to find out how to do that, you have the instructions for this. It's not very difficult. You have to download this particular app, AI to companion app to your phone. And then of course, like you can actually connect your phone to the MIT App Inventor. Your phone and your computer needs to be connected to the same Wi-Fi device, right? That's the best way. This is something that you can do later on. It's very simple, not very difficult. Everything is provided here. What I am doing is like I'm using the emulator because I don't have an Android phone and right now with me, but also like I can't show the phone to you. So if you want to use the emulator like me, depending on your operating system, you can download the emulator. And once it's connected, you can actually use it the way that I'm using it. To come to this place, you have to select this button. Like you have Create App. When you say Create App, you come to MIT App Inventor, which is the screen that you're seeing now, right? But for the moment, students, like have a look at what I am doing. It's very easy to start this environment and play around. But the main reason why I'm doing this particular application is, or this workshop is like to show you what are the things that you can do, and then you can try out these things after the workshop is over, right? It's very difficult to do an interactive session within 1 hour, and also like since we are not physically there, right? Okay, now you have an idea about how to change this. Let me actually change the font size of this as well. So I've changed it to 25. And now if I go to my application, you can see it has actually, it's appearing as it is, and I can type, for example, I can type my name or something, and then, it comes here. But once again, we have not written any code, but this is how you kind of like design your application. So I think one of the things that one of you was asking is like, how do you maybe make a better UI? So I'll show you 2 ways of doing that. So let me actually add a new screen. So normally, like when you use a phone, you might have multiple screens. So this is how you add a screen. You can go under add screen and add a new one. You can give a name for that. We will actually say screen 2 for that. And if you go to screen 2, you can see it's an empty one. So you can use layouts like this. Now, if you go under layouts, there are different arrangements. The easiest one is the table layout, but I'll show you a few others. So if you go under horizontal arrangement, you might actually want to have an arrangement like this where you have a label here. And on the right-hand side, maybe you want to have a text box, right? So then it's possible for you to have a text box. And then if you just place it right here, it'll come to this side, right? So actually these have to change. So you have the label and the text here. So here, if you look at this, I could change, for example, like you can have something like this. So for the label, let me actually say name, or let's say school. So now your application is like this. It's like asking for the school. So like you might say like Royal or something, right? Depending on your school, you can actually type. So this is an application where you can actually type the school name. But of course, like this also is not very nice. So if you have a fairly complicated one, the easiest one is to use a table arrangement. So let's try the table arrangement. In the table arrangement, like you're basically setting up a table. Let's say that we want to have 3 columns and let's say 4 rows. So this is the table arrangement. And to this, you can actually put components. Like, for example, one of you was asking like whether you can put a button in the middle. So that's a button. I could have a label here. And then I can have a text box coming in the second column. This is the second column. So you can actually have 3 columns. That's how we design this, right? So you have actually, according to this layout, you have 3 columns, like 3 columns and 4 rows. And then here you can actually set things up. There are so many different components that you can use, like there's a date picker. There are, so many different types of components. There's a time picker. I'll show you what they look like. So if you go to the UI, you can see like, I haven't changed the property names, but this is what a date picker is. So maybe like in your application, you want to select a date. Time picker is something that allows you to select a time. So these are like components that you can use. So once you select this, you can actually make this appear onto a label or a text box, right? So I hope you can get an idea about the layouts. But of course, like one of the things that you might want to do is like in here, we haven't looked at coding. So let's actually see how to write some code. So let's say, let me see if you have any questions. If you have any questions, please use the chat window. Let's try to do this. Like, let's say I'm going to, click this button. When I click this button, whatever name that I give here, I want it to come appear at this bottom part area. So I'm going to actually add a label. So this label is called label 2. I will make it fairly large. So let's say I want to make it bold, and I'll make it size 40, right? And I will use a different color. Let's say I want to use red color. And then of course, this part, I will just erase it. I don't want anything to appear, but it'll actually come there when you type it, right? So what I want to do is like when I click this button, I want it to display the name here, right? So right now, when I type a name, like let's say if you type SLIIT and then click here, nothing happens because I haven't written any code. Now, if you want to write code, we have to go under blocks. This is where you write code, and this is like using Scratch. Now, students, like when we write code in Scratch and also MIT App Inventor, we use this event-driven model. Now, in this event-driven model, what we try to do is like we respond to events. Now, we are actually trying to do something when the button is clicked. So if you go under the button component, this brown colored ones are what we call events. Now, events are things that happen in the real world. Now, if I actually go back to this my slide deck, you will see that events are things that happen in the real world. Like, for example, me speaking and you listening is an event. If you actually hear a sound, that's an event. If you are crossing the road and you hear the sound of a car, that is an event. The phone ringing is an event. Now, in the computer screen, of course, events can be like someone typing, someone clicking a button. And what we do in this event-driven programming is like we write a little bit of code for some event that happens. So we want to actually write some code when the user actually clicks this button. So this is the event that we want to handle. We are saying, okay, when button 1 is clicked, I can actually give some code what I want to do when this button is actually clicked. So what I really want to do is I want to change the label text. Now, label text is actually this one here. Now, normally, if you want to change the label text, I can actually go to the label and then type the text here. But I want to do this when the program is running. So if you want to change the text when the program is running, you have to write some code, something like in Scratch, right? So let me go under label 2. And then when you go under label 2, you will see these things. Like you will actually see green colored ones and light green colored ones. Now, what I want to do is like I want to change the text. So I will say like change the text. This is called the set command. So I want to say like set label to text. I want to change the text property of label to. So I want to change it to what is there in text box 1. Now, if I go under text box 1, here also there are events. These are commands. Purple colored ones are commands like hide key, request refocus, request focus. These are commands. And these are different properties. Now I want to actually get the text that the user has typed. So you can do that by using this particular one. You can see like these two are very similar. If you take the one here, it is actually saying set text box 1 text. So this is actually the opposite of this. This is to retrieve. The light green one is actually to retrieve. So I will say actually, I want to get the text property of text box 1 and store it in the text property of label 2. So let me go back to the screen. So what I want to do is like the name I will type here, and whatever I type here, I want to show it in this label here. So I'm basically saying, okay, text of label 2 should be equal to whatever the user types in the text box. So let's actually run this code and see. So I'm going to type like, let's say Codefest. And then if I click the button, you can see now it comes like Codefest. So if I actually type something else, like let's say some program like that you learn, like maybe Pascal, and then click, now it comes like Pascal. So students, this is how you actually write code in MIT App Inventor. So it's very similar to how you might actually do in in Scratch. So we use these blocks to actually write code, and you have very similar blocks as you have in Scratch here. Right? So do you have any questions? Okay. Now let's actually try to do something interesting. Now we have seen a button that will allow us to display the name. Let's have another button. So when I click this this button over here, let's say I want to go to screen 2. So we'll say like screen 2, or let's say next screen. So I have this is the text that I want to have. So you can change the text property here. I want to go to the next screen. In the next screen, which is basically screen 2, let's put an image. So we just put something here. So let's put an image. So I can go under, let me see. Okay, here is an image. So you can put any image that you want. So for the image, you can see there's a picture property. So I have to upload a file. Let me upload a file from my computer. So I have, let's say, this Codefest logo. And then I'll say OK. Sorry, I'll say OK here. And you can see the Codefest logo in that one. And yeah, let me see if you can actually see it over my emulator. You can see it here, right? So you can see in the emulator, like you can see the Codefest logo coming here. So you can actually have images, although it's not very visible here. You can see it coming out nicely in this actual application. And actually, for it to show here, maybe you have to scale this. I'm not really sure why it's not showing it in this environment, but you can see it's very clearly coming in the actual application, right? Okay, so this is my screen 2. So I want to go from screen 1 to screen 2. So this is my screen 1. So when I click this, I want to go there. So I had to write some code for it to happen. So once again, I can go under blocks. And this time, I want to write some code when the button 2 is clicked. So when button 2 is clicked, I want to go to screen 2. Now for this, you can give commands. So there are many commands that you can give, like you can see if commands, for commands. If you have done Scratch, you probably know these different commands that you can use. Now there are some commands related to screen operations. And let's actually see the specific one that we have to use for this. Yeah, so you can see like here you have this command, open another screen. And the screen name is, we'll say screen 2. Right? There's a question in the chat window. Yeah, you can make a button to log in. Yeah, so that's a very good question. You can create a button to log in. And there are some text boxes also that you can use specifically for logging in, right? Yes. So in fact, like since one of you is asking about, so basically like in here, what will happen is like when button 2 is clicked, it will come here. So like in screen 1, let's actually go to the design view and then see how to use this text box for login kind of thing. Let's have since one of you asked me, we'll have that as well. So let's create something like a login screen. So let's say I want to have screen 3. Now in screen 3, let me actually have something like a username password, right? So I'm going to have a text box for username. So let's say I want to create something like a login screen, right? Then easiest way is like I can actually have a layout. So I'm going to have a layout, 2 columns, 2 rows, and then on part of the user interface, I'll have a label. So the label will be like name. Then I will ask for the username, which is basically a text box. Then I'll have another label. And you know, password, there's a special box, right? You can see there's a password text box. In here, you can't see what the user is typing. And maybe like I want to have a button at the bottom, right? So this is a very simple login. So what you do is like, once you create the UI, you have to give you have to change the properties. So let me change this property to name, right? Or user, we'll call it user. And then this one can be password, right? And then the button can be maybe login. So this is basically how you would design one. And so if I actually run this application, so I had to type a name and the password. You should check for this, but you can see like when you type the password, it works like a kind of like a password box, right? But of course here you have to write some code to check for that, whether it's correct. So by the way, like let's try to do that. Like since maybe some of you know how to do this, we can actually write some code to check whether the password is correct. For that, I'll build hard code the thing for simplicity. Normally, of course, you will not do this. So maybe like I want to check whether the password is equal to something. So I can use the if command. So the control structures are here. So I could say like if I want to get the password text So you can see the text is actually this one. So this is the password text. So if password text, so I'll actually have to have a condition. So you can see this is actually the conditional command that I have to use. So I can say like if the password text is equal to something like, so I can actually put a text here. So let me say, we'll say scratch. Of course, you will not actually hard code this, right? You will not actually hard code your password. You'll get it from some database and do it. But I could actually check like this. If password text is equal to scratch, then I can do something. Now, maybe like what I want to do is like, I will say, I'll display a message here. So the message can be, for example, it could be a label. We'll use a label because it's simple for the moment. We could actually change this label if that is the case, right? So you could say then the label, which is label 2, we want to change this. Sorry, it should be set. By the way, if you make a mistake, you can actually bring it to the trash. So label 2, we want to set the label 2 to something. So let's actually say login successful or something, right? Now here, of course, we need to have an else part. So maybe this is not the correct control structure to use. We want to use if then else, right? So let's actually try to use if then else. So if this is the case, this is what we want to do. And this part I'll duplicate. So here we'll say like incorrect password. Of course, you won't do this in a real application because this is not really the correct one, right? You will have to maybe store it in a database or something like that and then try to do that. But this is a very simple thing. So now here, I have to type the password as scratch. This is my password. If it is correct, it will show me this. If it is wrong, it will show me this. I hope you have some idea about what this if then else is. You might have done this in Scratch. This is a conditional statement, right? So basically, I'm checking whether the password is this word. And if it is the case, I'm saying login success. We can actually immediately check this. That's the beauty of this. So I'm going to say like Nimal. I'm going to type a wrong password and then click. Yeah, sorry, it has to be this label, right? I have changed the label. It should be, yeah, it should be label 3. You can change this to label 3, then run this. And also like, let's make the font a little bit larger so that we can see this very clearly, right? So label 3, let's make this 30, and we'll use a different color, like green or something, right? And then have a look at this. So let's say Nimal, and I'm going to type a wrong password. So it says incorrect password, right? But now if I type the word scratch, SCRATCH, and then log, you can see login is successful, right? So you can actually, combine these various commands that you know to create a very interesting kind of like application. Yes, thanks. One of you actually pointed it out. It should be label 3, right? Great. Now, what I was originally trying to do was I wanted to go from screen 1 to screen 2, right? And actually wrote some code. If you remember this, like I said, when button 2 is clicked, go to screen 2. Now, from screen 2, let's go to screen 3. So if this, let's have another button. So when this button is clicked, so we'll call this next. It will go to the login screen. Of course, this is not the correct way of doing it. I'm just trying to show you how to connect these things. You can, once again, write code for this. So the one here is actually called button 2. So when button 2 is clicked, what we want to do is we want to actually open another screen. In this case, it's actually the screen 3, right? So let's actually run this application and see how this works. So you can see we earlier wrote this example of doing this. So it prints this, and when I click next screen, by the way, this you can remove. When you click next screen, you can see it goes to this this particular one, right, where we had the Codefest image and a lot of buttons which didn't work. Here, when I click the next button, it goes to the login screen. Actually, it should be the other way around, right? Did I make a mistake? Yeah, you can see it comes to the login screen. Of course, like normally what you would do is like you'll have this one as the first screen, and then you can go to the other screens that are there, right? So you can see that you can do so many things. Now, now the beauty about, yeah, let me actually go to the slide deck very quickly and show you a few other important points. So when you use coding, you can use these general code blocks and then write things. When you want to assign something, you have these setters, which are these ones called set, where you can assign something when you write the code. You can retrieve a value by using this getting a value kind of thing, right? And you can change various properties. There are some things that have commands. So for example, like if you take the one of the examples that I actually took, this example here, let's actually go to this project where we have this drawing program. Where's my... Yeah, so actually, let me show you this one as well, right? So this is actually, so since this one is the one that I didn't show you earlier, now this is actually a computer game, right? It's a very simple game. For this game, I'm using a canvas. Basically, a canvas is this, you can see under this one, under drawing and animation, you have a canvas, and these are two balls. So if you take a specific ball, you can actually give the color and the size, right? And then there is this, there are two balls, and I have written some code. Now, I'll run the application and show you how it works, and then I'll show you how to write the code for this, right? Now, basically, this is a game where I can actually fling this ball. Now, I don't know whether you know this, like in some games, you can click on the character and then you can show the direction that it should move. So I'm going to fling this upwards. Let me see if I can actually, sorry, it's going downwards. This one, I'll move it in the other direction. And when they actually collide, they stop. So let's try that again. So I'm going to swing it that way. This one, I'll move it down. So you can see it bounces off. And then if they collide, they stop, right? That's the game that I have created. Well, it's not much of a game. So you can, so there's this flinging action. Flinging means like you click and then you move it in the direction that you want. So if you actually move it fast, you can see like it goes like that. Let me actually move this slightly somewhere here so we can move it. So if I move this slowly, I have to click like this. Yeah, my direction is wrong. So let's move this one down. So this flinging means like you click on something and you move it in a direction. And then these things go around, and if they collide, they stop. Now you had to write code for this, and this is the code that I have written. So basically what I'm doing is like there are two balls. So there is this event called flung. Flung means me clicking this and then clicking like this and then moving it down or something. So actually these are stuck to each other. But me kind of like moving like that is actually what we call flinging. So when ball 2 is flung, I'm changing it takes the mouse movement. So there is a mouse movement in the direction and there's a speed. So I could actually move this very fast. The speed is like how fast I move it. The direction is like the heading. So I'm actually setting the heading of the mouse to the ball and the speed to the ball. And I'm also multiplying it by a factor. So actually ball 1 is actually moving faster than ball 2. Ball 2 is the same thing. When the ball 2 is flung means I'm just moving this like that. That is called flinging. And I can actually say the heading is the direction which I'm moving the mouse. And the speed is actually relevant to the speed that I'm moving the mouse, and also by a factor. And this is actually when you when ball one comes to the edge, I'm getting the edge, and then kind of using this bounce command. So by the way, these commands that you have in green are the commands. You can see this. Sorry, these purple colored ones are the commands I can give. I can actually bounce. I could collide with. These are different commands that I can give. And one of the other things that I have done is like if ball 2 collides, I'm changing the speed of ball 1 to 0. And I'm also changing the speed of ball 2 to 0. That's why they stop. So for example, if I actually want to make only one ball to stop, I could actually remove this. So I could say, okay, if there's a collision, only one of the balls is going to stop. I could actually modify my code like this. And if that is the case, now if I run this, and then let them move and they will collide at some point. I think they will collide now. No, they just missed each other. This time they should collide. You can see only one ball stops. That's because I have written the code that way. So earlier, both the balls stopped because I actually said, ball 1 stop, speed is 0, and ball 2 speed is 0, right? So so that's basically how you kind of like do that, right? So let me see if you have any questions. Okay. Now you can do a lot of really great things in MIT App Inventor. So you can only just imagine what you want to do. So if I actually go into another one, or let's actually take this one that we wrote earlier, and go to another screen. So let me actually add a new screen called screen 4. So so you can really do some fairly amazing things using MIT App Inventor. So let's actually try to create an app. So these are the different components that you can have. You have these media components. Now in these media components, you can actually play a sound. You can take a photograph. You can take a video. You have these interesting things like text to speech. So let's say I want to use this text to speech component. Now some components don't have a GUI. So like, let's say I want to type something here, and when I click this button, I want the computer to say it loud, right? I'm not really sure whether this will actually work. Let me try to reshare my app. So you should, now I want to write some code. When this button is clicked, I want to actually play something, or kind of like convert this text into speech. So I'm going to write some code like this. So when this button is clicked, I want to use this command like text to speech. You can see this purple colored function. So I want to speak this message in this text box 1. So I'll actually get the text box 1 content, which is basically this one. So let me actually try this out and see. I'm not sure whether you will actually hear this. So I'm going to type, say, hello, welcome to coding, and then play this. I don't think you heard it, right? Let me just try once again. No, I think you didn't hear it. Something to do with this. So this would actually convert this text into speech, right? So there are so many other things that you can do. I mean, please try this out and see, like, this is how you would convert text to speech. You can do language translation. So you can type something in one language and then convert it to another language. So you have this language translation that you can use. Then it's possible to use all the sensors that you have. In a phone, you have accelerometer. You can maybe write a barcode scanner, a light sensor. So all these things are there. So like, let's say that you want to write an application where using an accelerometer. So when someone, shakes the phone, if someone shakes the phone, you want to do something. Or maybe like when the light is dim, you want to do something, like you want to, make the screen color, the colors of your application different. Near field is actually a payment thing. So you can actually, so this pedometer is like, your phone, if it can actually detect how many steps that you are walking, that's what a pedometer is. So if you want to use a pedometer, maybe like you want to develop an application so that when someone actually walks, you want to find out how much steps that person has walked. So you can use this speedometer. Your phone needs to have these sensors. So if the sensor is there, you can actually write some code. So once again, like if you go under pedometer, these are the commands that you can give. You can start the pedometer, you can stop it. And once you do that, you can actually find out the distance the person has traveled, right? So you can actually imagine and then develop anything, or like you could actually do something when someone starts walking. So in this pedometer app, when someone takes the phone and starts walking, this is the event that will trigger. So this is actually when someone actually starts walking, your phone can detect. I hope you know, like your phone can actually, it has the intelligence to figure out like whether someone is walking or someone is running. So there are sensors that are built into the phone that can detect that, the way that you move actually, right? And then you can actually develop an application where you activate something when someone is walking, or when someone is, you could actually find out how many steps that person has walked. So all of these things, it's possible to do that. And not only that, like you can actually have, you could actually maybe like do a phone call. So programmatically, you can do a phone call. So for example, like if someone shakes the phone, so like let's say that you want to develop an application for an old person, like an elderly person. So when someone falls with the phone, if the phone falls down, you can actually make it maybe send an SMS, or maybe like call a number. So this is how you actually programmatically make a call, right? That's that phone call application. If you go under coding, you should be able to find out the different commands are there. So this is like phone call started. This is phone call ended when you're answering the phone. Here's how you make a call. So you can actually make a call through coding as well, right? So application can make a phone call. So this is like incoming calls. So, you know, anything is possible. So you just only have to imagine what kind of application you want to kind of like build. So I think that we have 2 students who have raised their hands, but can you please ask the question that you want to ask in the chat window? Yeah, so this is also a very good question. Like, can you use HTML? Yes, you can do that. So if you go into connectivity, you can use a web browser. So basically, you can host a web browser, and this web browser can run inside your application. So if you have an HTML kind of code, what you do is you develop a normal web page, and that web page can run inside your application. That's how you kind of do that. So you can see, like, you can even send Bluetooth messages. So from your phone, you can send Bluetooth data, and this is for Bluetooth. And there are so many other things that you can do using this. So Lego Mindstorm is like, if you have, Lego has a robo kit. And if you have that specific robo Lego set, you can actually control those robots using these commands, right? But you need that. And storage is something that you might want to think about, like when you want to store something, like say if you're developing a game and each time you run, you want to store data, you can actually use different kinds of storage. So file is a very simple kind of thing, or maybe like you want to use TinyDB is the one that you might want to use like for a very small kind of application. So you just kind of bring it here and you can write code. So these commands don't have UI. So for example, these last few things that we use don't have a UI, but you can write coding. So in TinyDB, what you do is like you can actually have a key value pair. So basically, you can store some kind of values in your code. So like, for example, you might actually want to say, you can actually store key value pairs or something like this. So you might actually say like, you give a tag. So you say name is actually some value, right? It could be like Ajit. So then it will actually store this value. So this is actually a name, key name value. So each time you can store different values. Like if it's a computer game, maybe you might actually want to store a score, right? So maybe you might actually want to say, you know, the value that you're trying to store is actually a score, and then that score is some specific value, like could be like 1000. And so basically you are storing this, and then next time you run your application once you close your application and then start again, you can retrieve these values. You can retrieve these values. So these are stored in the phone. Next time you start, it will remember these values. So you can retrieve these values by using the get value. So if you say get value and then say name, it will retrieve Ajit. If you say get value and then retrieve the score, it will be 1000. These, of course, you have to generate as part of the code that you're writing. Yeah, so there is a question, to take a phone call, should we store that data somewhere? Yeah, so for example, like if you want to take a phone call, let's try that. So this is actually how you make a phone call. I think to do this, yeah, so basically I think it will invoke the phone app, basically, right? It might actually select the current number. I'm not really sure how it actually picks the number. Yeah, so yeah, here is the number, right? So you could actually specifically specify the phone number. So it has to be some kind of property that you have in the phone. So you can see this clearly here. You can set the phone number to this. So if you want to call, so this is how you might actually write some code. So you might actually say, you know, so let's say that you have a button. And when you click this button, we'll put another button, and you want to make a phone call. So what you would do is, this is button 2. So let's call this call, right? And when this button is clicked, right? So in your application, you have, let's say that you have an emergency number. Emergency number. So that's your emergency calls. When you click this, it'll actually make a call to someone important to you, right? So then you must store the number here, as you mentioned, like the phone number has to be mentioned here. So let's say the emergency number is your parent's number. This is not a real number. So let's say this is your parent's number. And then you are going to call this. And this is going to be called when button 2 is clicked. So you'll say, like, when button 2 is clicked, you want to do this, right? It'll actually call this number when this button is clicked. So of course, if you have a real phone, you can try it out. Here, if I call this, I don't think you can see it happening. You can see like it's calling, right? Can you see that? So it's actually calling that number. What is this number? It's the number that I put in here. So it's so easy, right? I mean, you just have to imagine what you want to do, and then you can explore and then do things. You can really create very complicated, very sophisticated applications that other people can use, right? So imagine, like, now for Codefest, what you have to do is, like, you have to think about developing an educational game. If you think the phone is too small, you can think about a tab. If you have an Android tab, you have fairly large screen. So you can think of like something interesting, some educational kind of software that you want to use. If you want to, I think one of you asked whether you can use HTML. You can use HTML. Then you have to create a web page and then load that web page. But that web page has to be, rendered somewhere else. Like you have to host it somewhere. But within the tab, you can have so many different components, graphical components. You can have images. You can have many screens. There's no limit to the number of screens you can have. Each screen will have a different view, and you can move from one screen to another screen. So it's just that you can just imagine what you want to do. You have access to all the things in the phone. All the sensors are available. So this is when the light is dim. These are different, like orientation is like if you turn the phone, whatever direction, you can find it out. Proximity sensor is like, if it is close to your ear or if there's something close by, you can identify that. So gyroscope and accelerometer is like for the phone moving, you can actually find it out. There's a barcode scanner. There are maps. This is not Google Maps. There's something called OpenStreet. So if you want to have a map-based application, you can use this. So they use, if you actually go to this, you can actually find out the kind of things that they have. So in most of these things, you can actually find it out. So they have something called OpenStreet, which is basically a not a commercial one like Google Maps. So you can actually have map-based applications as well. And as I said, like you can take photos, you can play music, you can record sound, you can, there's speech recognition, like speech to text, that is possible. You say something and it converts to text. Or you can have text to speech. Text to speech also works really well, even for Sri Lankan names. This is for language translation. So if you want to convert something like French to English or English to French, so that is possible. So there are so many different things that you can do. So do you have any questions? I think we have gone slightly beyond the workshop limit. So thank you very much for joining today's session. So by the way, like there are so many other resources that that are there. So one of the things that I want you to do is like, this was more like kind of like to build up your curiosity and then kind of show you what is possible. So as I said, like there are so many different links available. This is the official website, but there are a lot of other websites that are there where you should be able to learn about more things, like how to develop applications in a few hours. So here you can see actual application being played, and actually if you go through some of these tutorials, you'll actually learn how to develop some of these things in these particular websites. So you can see like here, these children are playing with some games that they have actually created. In these tutorials, like all the instructions are there on how to develop this specific kind of very interesting applications, right? Here's another one where you can actually go through and then learn about how to develop applications using. So this is an interesting one, like shake to call an app. So if you shake your phone, it'll actually call, take a specific call, right? Now the applications that you develop are real applications, right? You can actually install it in any Android phone. So basically, like once you have got everything running, let me show you how to do that. So if you go to MI, so basically, like once you have finished everything, you can build this. This APK file is actually an Android application. So this APK file you can actually once you have finished, you can download it, and then you can actually give it to any friend who has an Android phone. Of course, like in Google, they have this thing called Play Store. But if you want to upload your game or application to Play Store, of course, you have to have an account. So you can't just freely upload it, but you can actually share this APK for other users to directly use your application that you're developing. If you want to share this in this environment, like in MIT App Inventor, you can actually use this particular feature, or you can actually share it in the gallery, just like in Scratch. You can just share this application for others to use. But maybe like if you create something really great, you can actually bundle it as an APK, and then you can run it on any Android device directly, right? That will be really cool. Yeah, to use the Play Store, like you need to have an account. Like usually they charge you about $25. If you have a friend who has a Play Store account, you can give it to a friend. You can't simply just upload, like in YouTube, you can upload videos. You can't just upload an app. You need to have an account, which is a paid account, right? There are no free accounts given, but if you have a friend who has an account, you can actually upload your application. It's around $25 per year. That's the cost for having an account to upload to Play Store. But you can certainly develop full-blown applications. There are really very little limitations on what you can do. Although like this is like a Scratch-like environment, you can just imagine and then create something really great. So I'm really hoping that you will develop some very exciting apps, and then we will see you competing. I mean, think about developing an educational app. That's for the Codefest competition. But it doesn't really matter even if you use it for something else. Like so try to use these different features and then use these tutorials. So here's another one. So this is also a very good one, I think, where you can actually, there are a lot of tutorials available on different kinds of games, people that you can develop. Okay, then, so thank you very much for joining today's session. So please contact us and register to the Codefest competition. So I strongly encourage you to compete, mainly because like when you try out things on your own, you really learn. So experiment and then, try out things. I'm pretty sure you can find out how to do these things. Think about an app that you find on a phone and then imagine how should you create something similar or something slightly different, right? and then using MIT App Inventor, you can actually develop such an app. Okay, so thank you very much for joining today's session. So if you have friends who have missed today's session and wants to see what we discussed today, we will upload this video to YouTube. And there are some other exciting workshops that we are having. So please join us if it is something interesting to you. Okay, then. So thank you very much for joining today's session.